I came home one Tuesday afternoon, engine still ticking from the heat, dust clinging to my boots, and I just sat there in the truck for a second because something didn't look right. You ever get that feeling, like your brain notices the problem before you can actually name it? Yeah, this was that moment. My driveway looked different. Not broken, not damaged, rearranged. And then it hit me. There was fresh asphalt. Dark, smooth, still smelling like chemicals baking in the sun, and it wasn't just on my side anymore. It connected, straight into my neighbor's yard like it had always belonged there. I remember saying out loud, "No way, no, no, no," like somehow saying it would undo what I was seeing. But it got worse. Because where my gravel used to curve around to my garage, there was now a fence. Not a small one either. 8 feet deep into my property, clean, decorative, expensive, looking like something out of a home magazine, completely blocking access. I just sat there gripping the wheel, heart pounding. Not panic, not yet. More like disbelief turning into something hotter. Because I knew exactly who did it. The Carters. They'd moved in 3 months earlier, big money, big attitudes. The kind of couple that treats a neighborhood like a project instead of a community. Daniel Carter. Always smiling like he's negotiating something, even when he's saying hello. And his wife, Elise, wine glass in hand every evening, watching everything like it's beneath her. The kind of people who complain about kids laughing too loud, or a work truck parked in a driveway that's actually being used for work. And my truck? Yeah, they hated it. Said it lowered the tone of the street. I run a small landscaping business, nothing fancy, but it pays the bills, keeps things honest. That driveway, wide gravel, wrapped around the side, wasn't decoration. It was function. It was my storage, my access, my daily workflow. And now, half of it was gone. I got out, walked slow, like if I moved too fast it would all collapse into a joke. But nope, the asphalt was real. The fence was real. My access was gone. So I did what anyone would do. I walked straight to their front door and knocked. Not aggressively, just firmly. Elise opened it, already holding that glass of red like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. She didn't even pretend to be surprised. "Oh," she said, smiling just a little too wide. "You must be here about the driveway." I didn't return the smile. "Your husband paved over my property and put up a fence blocking my garage." I kept my voice calm, but there was steel in it. She took a sip of wine, slow, deliberate. "Daniel had a survey done," she said, like that settled everything. "That section belongs to us now. You might want to double-check your paperwork." Now here's the thing. I knew my paperwork. I bought this place 8 years ago, had everything surveyed properly, lines marked, boundaries clear. This wasn't a gray area. This was theft. Clean, bold, expensive-looking theft. "That's not correct," I said. "That land is mine." Her smile didn't drop, it sharpened. "Well," she shrugged, "then I guess you'll have to prove it." And she closed the door. Just like that. No apology. No hesitation. Like she'd just told me the weather forecast. I stood there for a second, staring at the door, and that's when the anger finally settled in. Not explosive, not yelling. Just cold, focused. The kind that makes you very, very patient. I went back inside, pulled out my documents, spread them across the table. Deed. Survey. Plot map. Every line, every measurement, crystal clear. My driveway extended exactly where I remembered it. Exactly where it had always been. Which meant one thing. They didn't make a mistake. They made a decision. I called Daniel. He picked up on the second ring, cheerful like always. "Hey neighbor," he said. "I didn't waste time. You paved over my driveway and built a fence on my property." A pause, then a chuckle. Not nervous. Not apologetic. Amused. "We improved the property line," he said. "It makes more sense this way." "It doesn't," I replied. "Remove it." Another pause, longer this time. Then his voice changed, still polite, but colder. "If you have a problem, you can take it up legally." And that was it. No argument. No negotiation. Just dismissal. Like I wasn't worth the conversation. I hung up, stared out the window at that brand new strip of asphalt cutting into what used to be mine, and I realized something important. They thought I wouldn't fight this. They saw a guy with a work truck, a modest house, gravel instead of concrete, and they made a calculation. That I'd roll over. That I'd accept it. That I didn't have the time, or money, or patience to push back. And maybe that works most of the time. But not this time. Because what they didn't understand, what they couldn't understand, is that when you build your life piece by piece, when every tool, every inch of space has a purpose, you don't just let someone take it. You don't explode. You don't scream. You document. You plan. And if necessary, you teach. And trust me, by the time I was done with Daniel Carter, he was going to learn exactly where that property line was. Now let me pause the story for a second, because what Daniel did here, this isn't just rude neighbor behavior. It's a textbook case of how people try to manufacture ownership through confidence. And yeah, it works more often than you'd think. According to standard procedure, property boundaries aren't decided by who pours asphalt faster or builds a prettier fence. They're determined by recorded deeds, certified surveys, and legal filings with the county. You don't get to redraw lines just because it's convenient, and you definitely don't get to enforce that decision by physically altering someone else's land. From a legal perspective, what he did falls into a mix of trespass and unlawful encroachment. And the moment he added permanent structures, like asphalt and fencing, he made it worse, because now it's not just usage, it's modification of property that isn't his. And here's where it gets interesting. This is a psychological trap. People like Daniel rely on what I call confidence pressure. They act certain, they move fast, they create physical changes that feel permanent, and they assume you'll hesitate long enough for that new reality to stick. Most people don't want conflict, they don't want court, they second-guess themselves. And that hesitation is exactly what he was counting on. He didn't just take land. He staged it like it was already his, hoping I'd question my own ground. The lesson here is simple, but most folks learn it too late. If someone moves into your space, physically or legally, you don't respond emotionally first, you respond strategically. Because once something looks permanent, it becomes a whole lot harder to undo. And Daniel? He was betting I wouldn't push back hard enough to prove him wrong. So yeah, Daniel thought he'd already won. And for a few days, I let him believe that. I didn't argue anymore, didn't knock on his door again, didn't even look his way when we crossed paths, just went about my routine like nothing happened. But behind the scenes, I called a lawyer, filed everything properly, submitted my survey, my deed, all clean, all documented, and then I waited. Because legal systems don't move fast, and Daniel was counting on that too. And while the paperwork crawled its way through the system, he got comfortable. Real comfortable. Every evening I'd see his SUV parked right there on that stolen strip, angled like it belonged, like it had always been his. Weekends? Oh, he went all out. Guests pulling in, laughing, stepping out onto my former driveway like it was part of some luxury upgrade. At one point, he even installed these low landscape lights along the edge of the asphalt, soft white glow, real classy, highlighting the exact area he took from me, like a trophy. And the cherry on top? He had the nerve to complain when my trailer, parked on the remaining part of my driveway, blocked the aesthetic. That's when I knew he wasn't just taking space. He was trying to redefine it, rewrite reality. And that's when I decided it was time to use what was still legally mine. See, the fence didn't change ownership, it just blocked access. That 10-foot stretch, still mine on paper, still mine in court, which meant I could use it however I wanted. So I made a call. Tuesday morning, bright and early, a dump truck rolled into the neighborhood, big, loud, impossible to ignore. I walked out with my coffee, waved the driver in, and pointed right at that smooth, stolen section of asphalt. Right there, I said. He raised an eyebrow. You sure? I nodded. Very. And then, he dumped it. A full load of dark, rich mulch, thick, steaming in the morning air, spreading across the entire strip, spilling right up against Daniel's precious connection point, completely blocking his new driveway. I didn't rush inside. I stayed there, sipping my coffee, watching. And right on cue, the front door flew open. Daniel came out in a robe, hair a mess, eyes wide like someone had just keyed his car. What the hell is this? He shouted, storming toward me. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't even set the coffee down. Material delivery, I said. Got a job this week. He gestured wildly at the pile. You're blocking our driveway. I tilted my head slightly. You've got your own driveway, I said calmly. On your own property. That hit him. Not hard, but enough. You could see it in his face. Not confusion, irritation. Because he knew exactly what I was doing. But here's the thing. He couldn't stop me. Not legally. Not yet. The mulch stayed there for 3 days. 3 long days of inconvenience. Guests parking down the street. Elise leaving little handwritten notes on my door about community standards and mutual respect, which, honestly, I kept. They were kind of funny. But I wasn't done. Not even close. The second delivery came Friday. This time, gravel. 10 tons of it. Not a neat pile either. I had them spread it wider, thicker, covering every inch of that connection like a barricade. It was loud, messy, unapologetic. And this time, Daniel escalated. He called the cops. I'll give him that, he tried. Patrol car pulls up, officer steps out, calm, professional. He listens to Daniel first, because Daniel's talking louder, faster, pointing at me like I just committed a crime. He's blocking access. This is harassment. I stood there quietly, handed the officer my documents. Survey. Deed. Same ones I'd already submitted legally. He took his time, walked the line, looked at the fence, looked at the gravel, then turned back to Daniel. Sir, he said evenly, this is a civil matter. He's within his property rights. Daniel's face tightened. But he's blocking our driveway. The officer didn't miss a beat. Then you shouldn't have built on his property. And just like that, nothing Daniel could do. No ticket. No removal. Just reality, spoken out loud by someone in uniform. Now at this point, most people would stop. Make their point. Wait for court. But me? I had one more move. Not necessary. Not strategic. Just poetic. The following Monday, a bright blue porta-potty showed up. Brand new. Clean. And I had it placed right on the property line, dead center of that disputed strip. Perfectly visible from Daniel's front window. Didn't need it there. Didn't even really use it. But man, it made a statement. You could see Elise's face through the curtains the first time she noticed it. Absolute disbelief. Daniel didn't even come out that day. And for the next 2 weeks, that porta-potty stood there like a monument. Not to revenge, but to ownership. Legal, documented, undeniable ownership. And then, finally, the court date came. Daniel filed first, of course, claimed damages, obstruction, loss of use. Tried to paint me as the problem. I counterfiled. Encroachment, unlawful construction, property interference. We walked into that courtroom, and for the first time since this started, he didn't look confident. Not quite. Still polished, still composed, but there was tension now. Because court doesn't care about confidence. It cares about proof. My surveyor testified first, licensed, certified, detailed. Walked the judge through every measurement, every boundary line. Explained exactly where my property began and ended. Clean. Precise. Then my documents, recorded, dated, indisputable. And then, Daniel presented his. Or tried to. Turns out his survey wasn't official. Not even close. It was something he put together himself. Measurements taken with a tape measure, lines sketched out based on what he believed made sense. I'm not kidding. You could feel the shift in the room when that came out. The judge leaned back, looked at him for a long second. Not angry. Just unimpressed. And that's worse. Way worse. The ruling didn't take long. Full restoration of my property. Removal of all encroachments. Fence, asphalt, everything. And on top of that, he had to cover my legal fees. Every dollar. Just like that, the reality he tried to build collapsed. Legally. Completely. A week later, contractors were back. But this time, they were tearing things out. Breaking up that smooth asphalt, pulling down that decorative fence, hauling it all away piece by piece. And I stood there, same spot as before, coffee in hand, watching it all come undone. Daniel didn't look at me. Not once. And honestly, he didn't have to, because by then, the lesson had already landed. So yeah, that's how it ended. No shouting match, no dramatic showdown in the street, no revenge fantasy, just paperwork, patience, and a very well-placed porta-potty. And if you're expecting me to say it felt amazing watching his little project get torn apart, I mean, sure, there was a moment. Standing there with my coffee, hearing that asphalt crack, seeing that fence come down, it hits something in you. Not because you won, but because reality snapped back into place. Because for weeks, this guy tried to bend the truth, tried to act like confidence could overwrite facts, and in the end, it couldn't. But here's the part people don't always talk about, the part after the victory. Because winning legally doesn't magically reset everything emotionally. You still live next to these people. You still see their car, their lights, their curtains moving at night. There's no clean ending where everyone shakes hands and learns a lesson. Real life doesn't do that. What it does give you is clarity. And honestly, that's more valuable. The lesson here is, boundaries aren't just lines on a map. They're tests. Tests of how far someone thinks they can push you and how willing you are to hold your ground. And most of the time, people like Daniel aren't looking for a fight. They're looking for an easy win. They scan, they assess, they assume. Nice house, work truck, keeps to himself, probably won't push back. That's the calculation. And sometimes, they're right. Because a lot of folks don't want the hassle. They don't want lawyers, paperwork, tension. They'd rather lose a little space than deal with a big problem. And that's exactly why this kind of thing keeps happening. This is a psychological trap. The idea that keeping the peace is always the better option. That if you just stay quiet, things won't escalate. But what actually happens is the opposite. Silence gets interpreted as permission. And once someone believes you won't push back, they don't stop at one step. They keep going. A cone becomes a fence. A suggestion becomes a takeover. And suddenly, you're not defending your space. You're trying to reclaim it. From a legal perspective, what saved me here wasn't luck. It was documentation. Clean records. A proper survey. Clear boundaries filed the right way. Because when things escalate, opinions don't matter. Feelings don't matter. What matters is what you can prove. And if I hadn't had that paperwork, this story might have gone very differently. Maybe longer. Maybe more expensive. Maybe even lost. That's the part people underestimate. Ownership isn't just about living somewhere. It's about being able to defend it when someone challenges it. According to standard procedure, disputes like this are supposed to go through formal channels: survey verification, legal notices, court rulings. Not surprise construction projects while someone's at work. And when someone skips that process, that's not confidence, that's a gamble. Daniel gambled that I wouldn't respond, that I wouldn't know my rights, that I wouldn't follow through. And for a while, it looked like a smart bet, until it wasn't. And here's something else I learned. How you respond matters just as much as what you do. I didn't scream. I didn't threaten. I didn't escalate emotionally. I let him talk, let him act, let him build his version of reality. And then I responded with actions that were calm, controlled, and completely within my rights. The mulch, the gravel, even the porta potty, none of that was illegal. Annoying? Absolutely. Petty? Maybe a little. But effective? Definitely. Because it forced the issue into the open. It made the situation impossible to ignore. And sometimes, that's what it takes. Not aggression, but visibility. Making the problem so obvious that it has to be addressed properly. The lesson here is, you don't need to overpower people to stand your ground. You just need to understand the rules better than they do, and be willing to follow through when it matters. Now I'm curious. What would you have done? Would you have gone straight to court? Tried to negotiate? Or just let it go and avoid the conflict altogether? Because everyone thinks they know how they'd react, until it actually happens. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read more of them than you'd expect. And if you've ever dealt with a neighbor who thought the rules didn't apply to them, yeah, you're not alone. These situations happen more than people admit. Quietly, slowly, one small push at a time. And most of the time, they don't end with a courtroom. They end with someone giving in. So maybe the real takeaway isn't about driveways, or fences, or even property lines. Maybe it's this: know what's yours, know how to prove it, and don't let someone else's confidence make you question your own ground. Because once you do that, you've already given them more space than they ever had the right to take.